Trade laws are the rules of the road for the global economy. Just as traffic lights and road signs keep cars moving safely, trade rules guide the flow of goods and services between nations, ensuring order and predictability in a complex system. These laws are essentially agreements between countries on how to buy and sell goods. They set the taxes, known as tariffs, that must be paid at borders, establish safety standards to protect consumers, and outline how products should be made and labeled. Without these agreements, international trade would be chaotic and risky. For decades, the world moved toward freer trade, fewer rules, lower tariffs, and more open markets. Countries worked together to break down barriers, making it easier and cheaper to trade across borders. This system fueled Asia's economic rise, allowing countries like China, South Korea, and Vietnam to become manufacturing powerhouses. They could sell everything from smartphones to cars to customers around the world, creating millions of jobs and lifting millions out of poverty. Global rules, mostly set by the World Trade Organization, made trade predictable and fair. These rules helped prevent trade wars, encouraged investment, and gave businesses the confidence to build global supply chains that spanned continents. Asian manufacturing hubs flourished, building complex supply chains with confidence and stable access to Western markets. Factories could plan years ahead, knowing the rules wouldn't suddenly change overnight. But today, that stability is shifting. Headlines warn of trade tensions, and companies face new uncertainties about where and how they can sell their products. The US and EU are now making new rules together, sometimes outside the WTO. They're negotiating fresh agreements that reflect their own priorities and concerns. These powerful economies are forming trade blocs with their own standards, focused not just on economics, but also on politics, security, and shared values like environmental protection and human rights. This is reshaping global trade, creating both challenges and opportunities for Asia. Companies must now navigate a more complicated landscape, where old rules no longer apply and new ones are still being written. To survive and thrive, companies must adapt quickly, rethink their strategies, and stay alert to changing regulations, or risk being left behind in this new era. The era of simple globalization is ending. The world is entering a period where trade is shaped by shifting alliances, stricter rules, and greater uncertainty. A new chapter defined by stricter rules, shifting alliances, and a more complex global marketplace has begun. The choices made now will shape the future of trade for decades to come. The US and EU have just unveiled the Transatlantic Green and Secure Trade Pact, a landmark agreement that's set to reshape global commerce. This isn't just another trade deal, it's a bold move to align two of the world's largest economies around shared values and priorities. It's not just about lowering tariffs or making it easier to move goods across borders. Instead, the focus is on setting the world's toughest standards for products, ensuring that what enters these markets is safe, ethical, and sustainable. Now, any goods sold in the US or EU must meet strict new rules covering the environment, labor rights, and data security. Companies will need to prove their products are eco-friendly, made under fair working conditions, and that customer data is protected at every step. One of the most significant changes is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM. This new system taxes imports based on their carbon footprint, making it more expensive to bring in goods produced with high emissions. Products made with dirty energy sources will now face higher costs, directly linking trade policy to ambitious climate goals. This is a clear signal that sustainability is no longer optional in global trade. The pact also introduces tough new requirements for secure supply chains and robust data privacy. Only trusted suppliers who can guarantee transparency and security will be favored in this new system. In effect, the US and EU are building what some call a regulatory fortress, high walls made not of tariffs, but of complex and demanding standards that companies must navigate to do business. For Asian exporters and manufacturers, the message is clear. Adapt to these new rules, invest in cleaner production, and upgrade your compliance, or risk losing access to two of the world's biggest and most lucrative markets. The pressure to change is immediate and intense, as companies scramble to meet the new standards and avoid being left behind in this rapidly evolving trade landscape. Asia's export giants, electronics, textiles, and autos, are under pressure. Electronics makers in Vietnam, Malaysia, and China must now prove their products meet strict data and recycled material standards. Textile factories in Bangladesh and India face tough new rules on labor and environmental practices, requiring full supply chain transparency. Car manufacturers in South Korea and Japan are hit by carbon taxes on materials like steel and aluminum. The cost and complexity of compliance threaten Asia's traditional price advantage. Companies must either invest in cleaner, more transparent supply chains or risk losing their biggest customers. The old model of competing on cost alone is no longer enough. On the ground, the impact is real. In Malaysia, a company like TechVantage scrambles to track carbon footprints and source conflict-free materials just to keep Western clients. In Bangladesh, garment factories invest in tech to trace every step of production, but smaller players struggle to keep up. South Korean battery makers are moving operations closer to Western markets to avoid carbon taxes, shifting jobs and investment out of Asia. These aren't isolated cases, they're part of a continent-wide shift. Businesses face tough choices: invest in compliance or risk losing market access. The transition is costly, especially for smaller firms. The new rules are redrawing the map of global manufacturing. Adaptation is now a matter of survival. The biggest headache for many Asian exporters: paperwork. New US-EU rules demand detailed documentation on every product's life cycle. Carbon audits, labor certificates, supply chain tracing. For small and medium businesses, this bureaucracy is overwhelming. Complying with CBAM means tracking emissions from raw materials to shipping, all verified by third-party auditors. Exporters of products like palm oil must prove their goods are deforestation-free, using satellite data and on-the-ground checks. The Cost and Complexity Act is a new kind of trade barrier, favoring big corporations with compliance teams. Smaller firms risk being squeezed out, reducing diversity in global trade. The paperwork mountain is real, and it's reshaping who can compete. For many, the administrative burden is as daunting as the new standards themselves. The rules of global competition are changing. Price is no longer king. Environmental and ethical standards now matter just as much. A t-shirt made in Bangladesh may be cheaper, but if it can't prove green credentials, it loses out to a pricier, certified European rival. Trade is being diverted to friendly countries, even if they're less efficient, just to meet regulatory demands. Asian exporters face rising costs for compliance: green tech, new supply chains, more paperwork. These costs narrow the price gap, with Western goods eroding Asia's traditional edge. Products that once dominated global markets now risk being shut out. The challenge: find a new competitive advantage in a world where how you make something matters as much as what it costs. The adjustment will be tough, but it's unavoidable. Asia isn't standing still. Governments are negotiating for more time and support to meet new standards, and some are challenging rules at the WTO. Regional blocs like ASEAN are pushing for flexibility and technical assistance. Leading companies are investing in green tech and transparent supply chains, turning compliance into a selling point. Diversifying trade partners is key. Asia is strengthening ties within the region and with new markets beyond the US and EU. Agreements like RCEP are gaining importance, building resilience against Western regulatory shifts. The region's future depends on adapting quickly and finding new growth opportunities. The race is on to turn challenge into advantage. The new US-EU trade era brings both risk and opportunity for Asia. As global trade rules shift, Asian economies find themselves at a crossroads, facing a rapidly changing landscape that demands both caution and boldness. The challenge is clear: adapt to tougher standards, rising costs, and a mountain of paperwork, or risk being left behind in the race for global relevance. For many exporters, this means rethinking old strategies and investing in new processes to meet stricter requirements. But there's a silver lining. Higher standards can actually drive innovation, pushing Asian industries to upgrade technology, improve quality, and move up the value chain. This transformation can open doors to new markets and create products that are more competitive worldwide. Companies that invest in sustainability and transparency will be more resilient and competitive, not just in the West but globally. Embracing eco-friendly practices and clear reporting can build trust with international partners and consumers alike. The path forward is to embrace new technology, foster collaboration across industries, and diversify export markets. By working together and leveraging digital tools, Asian businesses can streamline operations and respond quickly to global trends. Regional trade agreements like RCEP offer a buffer against Western policy shifts, providing stability and new opportunities for growth within Asia and beyond. The world of trade is now shaped by values and geopolitics, not just price. Decisions made in distant capitals can have ripple effects across Asian supply chains, making adaptability more important than ever. Asia's economic miracle was built on the old rules: low costs, mass production, and rapid growth. But its future depends on mastering the new ones: innovation, sustainability, and global cooperation. The transition won't be easy, and there will be setbacks along the way. But for those who adapt, the rewards could be greater than ever, unlocking new levels of prosperity and influence. The next chapter of global trade is being written now, and Asia has a unique chance to lead, shaping the future of commerce for generations to come.